Hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Building podcast. I am Jacob Cody, and my co-host here is Jeff Warchalik. Jeff, how are you today?
I'm great. Happy to be here. How are you?
That's right. I'm great as well. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to kind of do an internal podcast, go over some common misconceptions about roofing, kind of give you some basic information, and just answer the questions that we hear a lot from facilities, property managers, and just homeowners in general as well. So we'll kind of go over all these things, and then we'll continue to do one of these every once in a while to keep everybody updated on the world of roofing, if I could get that out correctly. But yeah, let's start off. I don't think we've really introduced ourselves too much further than what we've said in previous episodes. So, Jeff, why don't you start us off and just kind of give your background, your title, what you do at Guaranteed?
Yeah, that's a good idea because I don't think we have done this. So I am second generation in our family roofing company. So I kind of grew up with exposure to the trades my whole life. So when I was in high school, college, on the summers and winters, sometimes I would work with my dad. Not all the time, but sometimes I would. And then when I graduated college, I joined the business full time. So I'm going on my 10th year doing that. When I was growing up, it was more framing and building and construction, things like that. And then around the time that I joined the business, we started to transition into almost exclusively roofing with some select other projects. So that's what I focused on. And in the business, I kind of started from the bottom. Like I would help my dad, like I was talking about earlier. And then when I graduated college, I worked at the front desk and then I transitioned doing some marketing and QuickBooks type stuff and payroll. And then as I got older, I transitioned more into operations and then mostly commercial roofing, although I've done residential too. But the past 5 years, my big focus has been commercial roofing and then marketing too. So I've kind of seen a lot of different sides of the business, which has been super interesting to me.
Yeah, and that I believe that's what attributes to a lot of the success for the company is having so many people that are well versed in all facets of the company, especially yourself, our production manager Norm, and just having a team that knows a lot of different areas, and not just I know one thing and that's all I do. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So what about you? How did you get here and what's your background about?
Yeah, yeah. So I have only been in the roofing world for a little under a year now, coming up on it quick. Jeff and I actually were good buddies in high school. And so I've been around his company. I've talked to him about his company, his parents' company since then, which was sad to say, but a long time ago
Very long time ago.
and a very long time ago. And so I've been around it just in that kind of sense. And then, but I've been in sales myself for just about 10 years, I'd say, and have loved it since I started. Love making relationships with customers and providing solutions. And that's what I do now at Guaranteed is help find solutions for commercial roofing. And I also manage the residential team of sales reps and kind of put my managerial skills to the test to try to help out any way I can. So haven't been here long, learning quickly and continuing to learn. And so even today will be a good learning opportunity for myself to always get a closer and closer look at a lot of these things that we see in the roofing industry for sure.
Yeah, big time. Let me ask you this. You've been in sales for about 10 years now, like you said. So what's the big difference? Because you've kind of seen a few different industries with sales. What struck you the most in your first year or so, coming from where you were now into roofing sales?
Yeah, I think in this industry, the main thing that I've seen is it's very, you wouldn't think so, but it's very relationship based. It's very trust based with the projects that we sell and that we consult on. And I think that's the biggest difference is a lot of the other things that I've done. A lot of them have been transactional. I've had relationships with customers, but when you're doing I used to be in hardware sales. I'm I'm writing POs and taking orders every day of just transactional things. Whereas commercial roofing is very much so building that trust, making those small repairs and then selling jobs that, could be six figures pretty easily in that world. And so It's a little bit different in that way, but I think that it's very a lot more rewarding because the roof is really the protection of not just assets, but operations, production, anything that you can think of to keep a company running. You need to have a good roof that's not leaking or being exposed to the outside, whatever weather it is. So I think it's a lot more, just a lot more fulfilling because we're actually providing a service that helps companies and homeowners every day rather than just something that they might want or like. It's more, this is what they need, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And like you were talking about, for a second, let's focus on the industrial and manufacturing side. So if we're going to, a large building, we've been on buildings that are hundreds of thousands of square feet, right? So if we're on those and they have a big roof leak and leaking in multiple different areas over the floor, the production floor, right? That could shut down production for weeks, maybe even months when you're talking about remediation and insulation damage and cleaning up the water and all of those kinds of types of things. It could cost thousands, several thousands of dollars for the company to shut down production.
Yeah. Exactly, and I think that's the value that we bring is that we're not just selling you a product, but we're selling you a solution to a big problem, right? And one of the things that we are going to talk a lot more about today is being proactive within that, and coming up with solutions for our clients that you can be proactive with, right? That you don't have to just wait till the leak destroys production and leaks in there, but you can take the necessary steps today to prevent that and keep everything running smoothly throughout the year.
Yeah, I agree completely. That's one of the things that we've seen a lot of. There's so many leaks and a lot of damage to buildings that could be avoided with preventative maintenance and just keeping things in check. Like the easy analogy is a car, right? You can't just buy it off the lot and then not do anything with it for 10 years. You have to do maintenance to it every year and touch on all those milestones that you need to make sure that the car operates smoothly. It's the same thing with a roofing system, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's get started then. I mean, kind of jumping right in. Let's focus more so on flat roofing or commercial roofing first, and just kind of give me a rundown. Like, what's something that facilities or property managers or owners of larger buildings that have flat roofs? What are some things they should know? What does a flat roof entail? What are some key things that you need to?
Yeah, so when we talk about commercial roofing and flat roofing in particular, it's really a whole system, right? So you start with a deck, a roof deck, whether it be steel, concrete, wood, it could be any of those, it could be gypsum too. And then it depends on a lot of different factors, right? So the building could be insulated from the inside, which is easier for us because we don't have to deal with it, but it could be insulated on the outside, which now the code is R30, which is 2 layers of 2.6 insulation. And then you have whatever membrane, or you could have a built up or SBS system too. But most of the roofs that we see and that we do are membrane single ply roofs, so PVC, TPO, or EPDM. And when we're assessing a roof, I think the thing that we're looking at the most as far as repairs and maintenance, we're always looking at penetration. So where there's HVAC units on the rooftop, where there's seams between rolls of membrane, where there's vent pipes, solar arrays, things like that. The things we're keeping the closest eye on for maintenance are definitely the penetrations in the roof. Anytime that something goes into the roof and there's flashing around it, those are the weak points of the roof for sure.
Yeah, and so as a let's say I'm a maintenance technician or someone who's on the roof pretty regularly on a flat roof. What are some key things I should look out for when trying to detect something that could be failing soon?
Yeah, so let's look at it like there aren't any active leaks for right now. So if there's no active leaks and you're up on the roof as a facilities or property manager, maintenance director, I'm keeping an eye on the penetrations for sure. I'm looking at anywhere where seams come together. So in the field, usually rolls of membrane are 10 feet wide. So The rolls of membrane, if it's say it's an adhered EPDM system, you have one roll of membrane, then you have seam tape, and then you have the other roll overlapping that. We see a lot of failures in the seams on older roofs when they get to be about 20 years old or so. The seams just start to come apart. It's kind of the natural life cycle of a membrane roof. So I'm looking at the seams and I'm looking at vent pipes and HVAC units, things like that. So when you're inspecting those parts, you should see the seams sitting together flat. You shouldn't see cracks. You shouldn't see any lifting, things like that. When you see those things, those are definitely warning signs that there's either water actively getting into the roof and the insulation and then on the roof deck, or it's probably going to happen soon.
Mm. Yeah, and when you're talking about seams too, is there any way, like, is there any give or should there be any give with certain systems? I know, like with age on a flat roof, you're gonna see some things start to peel up. But what should the warning sign be to call a roofer or to make the necessary steps to fix that? What's the warning sign? Is it when it's peeled all the way, when it's barely pulling up, or is there?
It it could be it's crazy because you wouldn't think that water would find some of the some of the protrusions that we see, right? Like, we have our roofing probe for thermoplastic membranes, so TPO or PVC, and we probe the seams on the roof, and there could just be a hole the size of a pin that could cause a leak, right? So if you see anything that's suspect at all, I would say it's time to call a roofing contractor to come out and do a free evaluation and inspection and kind of get an eye on what the warning signs are. If there's anything that just doesn't look right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think one of the things that I see a lot when I speak to facilities, operations, property managers, whoever it may be, is they kind of just mention the leak. And I think to be proactive would be a good idea to take pictures, to describe it, to find out, like you said, look at the penetrations and kind of keep up with it, right? So that you're like, okay, I saw this, but I didn't document it well, and then you find yourself down the line getting a call from XYZ department saying, "Hey, there's a leak in here." And so when you don't document it like that, then you're not gonna be able to find maybe where that was again, right? So I feel like it's important to be proactive in that, and that's like you said. Obviously you can do that yourself, taking pictures, documenting it. But that's why we offer specifically, free roof inspections just to help you get a good health report on your roof to document the specific areas that may seem kind of sketchy so that when that does happen, either we can do maintenance now and be proactive, or at least you have documentation so that when there's a leak, you can say, okay, this place is a little sketchy. Let's go take a look and pinpoint it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's the hardest part about a leak is pinpointing the exact location and any problem areas that might have contributed to it.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. Sometimes there's some low hanging fruit, I guess, where it's kind of easy, right? Like, we've been on roofs and we find a leak within 2 minutes of being up there, but especially with built up roofs, older style roofs, or with buildings that have steel decks, right? Because if there's a steel deck, a lot of the time the water will get through the membrane, find its way onto the steel roof deck, and then it'll run through the flues of the steel roof deck and then just find a penetration in the deck itself. And it could be 100 feet away from the actual leaking point. So, to your point, that's a challenging part about it. And that's why it's probably best to call a roofing contractor. I know that some larger companies have roofers in house that work too. So, either way, I think you want a professional set of eyes on it that's trained to find.
Agreed. Agreed. All right, let's kind of move a little bit more into some common misconceptions. I'm going to ask you a few questions and just answer them as detailed as you can, and we'll kind of clear up some things that we hear a lot. I know that you've heard a lot specifically as well. One of the things I wrote down here is, well, my roof is flat. Why does it look like there's some pitch to it sometimes, or why does it look like some areas are lifted higher than others? Is this a problem? Is this because my insulation is all warped? Why does it look like it's bulging at certain areas?
That's a great point. So, I think when we first started, we talked about a full roofing system, right? So it's not just a sheet of membrane that goes over the building, right? It's a whole system, and we can't just have a completely flat roof because we need water to drain off of it. So that's totally normal. It's for there to be a pitch on a flat roof. So that can be done a few different ways. We can, when the building's designed and built, sometimes the roof deck will be sloped itself. And then sometimes there's a tapered insulation system. So, especially on some of the buildings that we've been on, especially on government buildings, schools, things like that, there's some pretty intense tapered insulation designs that get drawn by engineers and then laid out very professionally. It's pretty complicated actually, so the roof will be tapered towards drains or towards a gutter, things like that. So that's all totally normal stuff. Usually they're tapered either a quarter of an.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that's good to know too. I've heard that question a lot of, it seems off, and there are some people who say, "Oh, well, it's pretty obvious because it points right to the drain." But there are some roofing systems that just look strange, but really it's like you said, it's for a purpose to help make sure that you're not getting pooling water, that your roof system is completely healthy and that it's doing its job, right? Which is to divert water and other things that come from all sorts of weather away from getting inside your building. Here's another one for you. I have a leak. Does that mean I need a whole roof, a whole new roof? Do I really need to rip up everything, or what can I do about that?
I feel like the majority of the time it doesn't necessarily mean that, right? On flat roofing, usually when we get to the point of 20 to 30 years, that's when we start to think about that. But leaks develop over time, especially like we talked about without routine service and maintenance and inspections. I think that we do a lot more service work on flat roofs than we do replacements just because they don't necessarily need them all the time. If there's a leak here or there, we can oftentimes fix that and prolong the lifespan of the roof. Would you say the same?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I find a lot too, and that's what I think common misconception is people they don't want to call a professional because they don't want to be told, you have to spend XYZ amount of money, crazy amount just because I have a leak. When in reality, a lot of times you can repair those specific areas, right? So, especially with a membrane roof, a lot of times it's if you can pinpoint where the leak is, and you can cover strip it, you can seal it, whatever you have to do to repair that, and you can do that. You can prolong the life of that roof. But like you said, I think it is time to start looking at replacing it once you get past that 20-25 year mark, depending on the condition of it. I mean, it is good to obviously take a look and say, well, maybe I need to start budgeting or getting a capital project ready for this roof so that we don't run into 10 leaks a year. But there are times where you can, especially in the beginning of your roof stages, that something might fail and maybe a storm opens up a seam or whatever it may be. Don't feel like you have to replace the whole thing or rip it up. That you can make these small repairs and extend the life of your roof for sure. And I think that goes to kind of add to the maintenance and the care plan, right? That you're taking care of your roof, whether it's biannually or annually, and you're getting a look at it and you're making the necessary repairs and adjustments to prolong that roof to become a 30-35 year roof.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I think that's the most important part of trying to get the most value, right? When you say we plan a roof replacement on a warehouse or something, and we do it this year, the building owner can significantly increase the lifespan of that roof just by doing annual inspections and maintenance, preventative maintenance, things like that. That's the most critical part. And in the long run, it definitely saves money.
Yeah, and like you said, I think we do that with a lot of other things in our life, right? Like you said earlier with a car. You can't just buy a car brand new off the lot and get even if you get a full warranty on it, if you don't do your oil change, you don't get your tires replaced or rotated, then you're gonna have a problem in 5-7 years, especially if you don't get the oil change consistently. Within a couple of years, you'll see problems with your engine, and most people don't say, well, I had a warranty, so I don't need maintenance. But with the roof, it's the same thing, right? Like, yeah, you have a warranty, and that's for some major things. But if you do regular maintenance on it, your car is going to last, or your roof is going to last. You know, the projected lifespan, just the same way as a car, right? Like one of my first cars that I owned lasted. I bought it late in its life, but because it was regularly maintained, it lasted over 200,000 miles. Whereas heard stories from people that have only lasted, 120,000 miles before something happened. So it's all about trying to get the most out of the system that you can. And to your point, that comes with simple maintenance that may seem unnecessary, but will save you hundreds of thousands in the end, you know?
Yeah, and you raise a great point too about warranties. So, similar to a car, if the roof isn't properly maintained, inspected, and having service done on it, the warranty may be invalid over time just because the manufacturer could say, well, maybe there was a defect or a problem down the road, but this roof hasn't been looked at in 15 years. There's several just preventative maintenance things that should have happened by now, and maybe avoids the warranty.
Exactly. So kind of going off that too, we'll ask one more of these common misconceptions. We'll save the rest that I have here for maybe another episode down the line. But one of the things I hear is the cheapest bid is the best deal. Kind of tell me why that's a misconception, and kind of give me a generic overview of why you might want to spend a little bit more to get the right system on your roof.
Yeah, this could be a long discussion for sure, but we'll keep it brief. So there's a lot of factors that go into roofing quotes, especially on flat roofs. This brings to mind one that we were just looking at this past week, I think, where we quoted a project and we were higher than another contractor. We quoted a fully adhered EPDM system with new metal edge, a lot of different things that's the right way to do it. That'll help the roof last longer. And then come to find out the other contractor we were going against that was probably, what would you say, 20% less than us on a 300 square roof.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah.
They were reusing flashings and metal edge and gutters. They weren't using a cover board over the top of the existing system. So that's why it's difficult. I feel for customers, right? Because they don't necessarily know all the verbiage in the quotes mean. That's why it's important to have it explained to them properly. So they could look at two roofing quotes and kind of just scan through the words, make sure everything sounds right, and then see, oh, this one's, $50,000 less than this quote. They must want to make more money when in fact the company that's hired could be just putting a better system on their roof by doing all those things like new metal edge and having a cover board and new insulation, things like that, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
What
and
would
to
you
your
say to that?
Yeah, and I think I mean, that's all great stuff, right? And I think that's the important part of kind of comparing, like you said, not a lot of people have a lot of knowledge about roofing, and there's so much to learn. I know that I've learned a lot just in my short time here. But there's so much more to learn as well, and I think that's why it's very important to educate yourself. Have, like you said, have these things explained to you and ask questions, right? So I think the biggest thing we find is people just see the price and assume, like you said, like, oh, they just want more money. Well, ask questions. Why is yours more expensive? Why, I see on this proposal it says this and yours says this. What is the difference there? Because it's you pay for what you get what you pay for, right? And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, because the same thing, if you go back to the car analogy, if I got new tires and I just bought, 500 or $400 tires, or for all four tires at Walmart, yeah, it's going to make my car drive. But how long are they going to last? How easy will it be for them to pop or get, to be deflated? When in reality, if I went and bought a tire that was from a well-known manufacturer and has really good things to say about it and all these different things that are clearly explained when you're buying, yeah, it's going to cost you a couple $100 more per tire, but you might get 20, 30, 40,000 miles more out of them, right? And so it's all about asking those questions, right? Like if we're just looking at a price tag, and we just bought everything that we've ever owned, just based on what could give me the lowest cost, we'd have a bunch of junk in our house that doesn't last a long time, right? And so, just to put it plainly, I think that's the same thing that we see in roofing too, and really all big projects like this, right? Like the same thing if you're buying an HVAC system, right? If you get a very cheap HVAC system, who knows how long it will last comparatively to the one that might have cost you, $10,000 more. So it's kind of taking looking at that and then kind of weighing that out, right? So not just asking those questions, but going a step further and saying, is it worth for me now to spend a couple extra, thousands of dollars to get the right system, or my system fail 10 years before it should, and then having to pay the price at that point, which, let's face it, everything doesn't get cheaper as time goes on, right? Everything is going to continue to inflate and get more and more expensive. So I think that's the key to looking at proposals is asking the right questions and thinking of it in a long-term sense, not just, what is it going to cost me now, but what is it going to cost me in headache and time and money, 10 years down the road.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better, and those were all the points I was going to hit. It's really a cost analysis, right? It's exactly how you said. I mean, we're facing a 10% material increase in like 2 weeks, I think. Thinking about the cost of a roof now compared to 5 or 6 years and now 5 or 6 years ago, it's so much different. And think about if you can extend your roof's lifespan by replacing it the right way now, you could save years on your system and just be in a much better position.
For sure. For sure. Awesome. So I don't want to take too much more of our time here on this, and we'll definitely do another episode and continue on this type of same discussion, go over a few different things. But I just wanted to touch on a few small things that we think could help you guys, the listeners, if you are the person that's in charge of this, how you could extend the life of your roof and how you could save money. And so I'm just going to name a couple of things that we see good practices in the industry. Number one being inspect twice a year, right? So we have a maintenance program ourselves, but I would, if you have an in-house team like Jeff mentioned earlier, or you have a trusted roofing partner, I would suggest looking at doing getting inspections biannually, meaning that you're getting one in the spring and the fall, right after the winter, especially here in New England, but really nationwide, getting eyes on it twice a year. And then after any major storm as well. So if a hurricane flies in, and I would take a look at it then as well and well document it. This will save you time. This will save you money, being proactive with getting inspections done. And like we said, I think a lot of things can be done in-house, but you you probably want a trusted roofing partner that's on there that knows what they're looking for, and can give you sound, trustworthy advice, that's gonna, again, save your company a ton of time and money. Anything to add on that?
I think what I was going to add is the next thing on the sheet here is keeping the water moving, right? Cleaning gutters, clearing drains, making sure that the roof can shed water. I mean, we not too long ago, Jacob and I went to a roof in Cranston, Rhode Island, that because the roof wasn't maintained, it didn't have inspections, and didn't have the drains cleared, there was about a foot of standing water on top of the roof, which not only is bad for the roofing system, but it's awful for the building and could be an absolute catastrophe, right? So it's important that biannually, at the minimum annually, we're clearing around all the drains, making sure nothing's blocking the flow of water.
Mhm. For sure. And then lastly, I'll just say another thing to add to this is to fix the small things fast, right? I think that's very important that when you find a seam that's starting to lift, I would call someone up and get that repaired as quickly as possible. Because what that could do is it could turn, from a couple $100 repair, just, resealing the seam and putting some cover strip on it, that could turn into an open, a seam that opens even more and more, and water intrusion and internal damage and all these things that could turn into thousands of dollars when you could have just said, "Oh, I caught this. I'm gonna cover strip this. I'm gonna get a roofing company to come out here and seal this seam so that we don't have any problems." I think that could save you thousands when you just take care of things as quickly as possible.
Yeah, another point on that is that insulation does not dry out. So, the longer that seam is left open and the bigger it gets, the more insulation is going to be absolutely saturated. We were actually today, we're doing some service work on commercial roof. We're reflashing the HVAC unit because it's been a problem with leaks for years, I think. So we cut back some of the EPDM membrane about 5 feet from the bottom of the curb, and all of the insulation was saturated. And we lifted the membrane up. It's a mechanically attached system, so we could lift around where we cut, and all the insulation is just totally saturated. And now it's a much bigger problem than if it was just taken care of, 5 years from 5 years ago when it began to be a problem.
Hmm. Yeah. So make sure that you're taking some of these tips to heart. they'll definitely save you some money, save you some time, save you some headaches on I know that we talk to a lot of facilities people and property managers, and I know they get hundreds of calls during the week about problems, problems, problems. And so, if you can make sure that you're taking some of these tips and putting them into action, you might save yourself on some calls there. But I think that's it for myself. Anything else to add, Jeff, before we log off here?
No, I'm good. I like this. I think this was a great idea. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And we'll do another one soon. Try to break up some of the episodes and just put a little internal one in there and kind of give you guys some tips and tricks of what we see in the roofing world as we continue to learn from you guys in your positions and your industries as well. So looking forward to doing more of this, learning more from all those that join us. So I will see you next time on the next episode of Behind the Building podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we will see you later.
Sounds good.